Okay, everybody. Good afternoon and happy Father's Day to everybody. And happy Sunday, the 21st. We got a big lineup. Big lineup. Like I said the other day, like I said yesterday, every day from here to the 4th is going to get wild. A lot of news to get out. Hopefully, I won't get burnt out by the 4th. And I just got 210, at least 210 Derek Johnson new ones out today. Plus, oh, it's everything. One video at a time, you guys. We'll be doing. Then a big plane crash last night. I'm going to show first, and then afterwards, one of our favorites just came out at 12 o'clock. She got two of them, so we'll play them two first after the plane crash update. No Billy Dean yet, but I got other ones to play. I think I got another. I don't know if I do or not. But, we'll see. Hi, Mom. And hopefully Kay will be in here today. Bella. Ariana. Chico just jumped in the window. Playing in the window right now. So yeah, we're gonna have two shows. So nothing's going on. Sister's out of town all weekend. I think they went to see the grandkids at the base in Kansas City, where my other nephew is stationed. And I got a 10-minute clip on JD Vance arriving at that meeting there this morning. And a 9-minute clip about another video on the birth certificate. I don't know how old that one is, but might be new. So, other than that, I don't know how many will get in the first show because everybody's out on Father's Day. And we got Samantha in right after Lucy. Nope. Sam, I lost two of my dad, so today's not, it's another day just for me. So hard to get by Mother's Day and Father's Day. Yeah, thank you too. We're gonna have a big lineup, a lot of good stuff coming out from here on out till the 4th. Are you at home, Samantha? Any plans for today? That's good. A lot of good stuff out today. Hopefully we'll get our mods in here. We only got one mod, Lucy. Or what's that? Oh, okay. I just saw you now, Carol. Thanks. How's it going? I got a plane crash update. Did you hear about that plane crash in Maryland? Okay, yeah, we're gonna play that one first. Then we got the two new cat lady just came out. We're gonna do all the short ones in, and then hopefully we'll get some more people in. I know today's Father's Day, so hopefully they're all listening. We got a couple DJs too, Carol. Two 10-minute ones, Liz. Yep, you too, Paul. Yeah, my two dad, my stepdad, real dad passed, so I just found 5 big videos just 2 minutes from now. There's so much stuff coming out. So we are going to go ahead and get started. So YouTube entertainment opinion only, and I go and we get disclaimer in chat. Thank you, Carol. Till Flying Eagle gets in here, and hopefully he'll be in. KK and Tim will probably be in late. So yeah, we're going to get started here. First up, a big plane crash last night. God dang it! What the heck?
Courtesy of the Maryland Police. It says that police are on scene of a fatal single-engine plane crash in Bowie. PIO on scene for an 8 a.m. briefing. Media staging was there at Annapolis Road and Superior Lane. And we did get a press conference with some updates regarding this plane crash. Let's take a look.
Good morning. My name is Elena Russo, Office of Media Communications for the Maryland State Police.
You know her,
I'd like to introduce everybody behind me. From Maryland State Police Special Operations Division, Sergeant Greg Lance. From our Criminal Enforcement Division, Corporal Zach Null. From Prince George's County Fire Department, Assistant Fire Chief John Bender. From Bowie City Police Department, Deputy Chief Robert Liberati. Standing next to our Deputy Chief is Bowie City Mayor Mike Esteve. The preliminary investigation at this point indicates that at about 11:30 p.m. last night, a single-engine Piper Cherokee with a pilot and 2 passengers on board were en route from Ocean City, New Jersey to Montgomery County Air Park. For one reasons unknown at this time, the plane crashed in a wooded area in Bowie. The 3 occupants, all adults, were declared deceased on the scene by EMS personnel. At this point, their identification is being withheld pending next of kin notification. We believe the plane belongs to a local flight school in Montgomery County and was possibly participating in a training flight. An iPhone crash alert was received by Prince George's County Public Safety Communications at around 11:30. An iPhone crash alert was received by Prince George's County Public Safety Communications at around 11:53 p.m. last night, indicating a crash in the area of Route 50 and 301. A ground and aerial search for the aircraft immediately began by members of the Prince George's County Fire Department, Maryland State Police from the College Park Barrack and our Special Operations Division, Anne Arundel County Police and Aviation, Bowie City Police, and Prince George's County Police Department. The aircraft was located at approximately 3:45 a.m. in a wooded area in close proximity to a residential area off of Scarlet Oak Court. At this point, the investigation will be led by the NTSB and the FAA. At this point, I will open it up for any questions.
So basically, this crash happened and no one really knew that this plane went down except until there was this iPhone notification.
The only notification we received, and that was received by our Prince George's County Public Safety Communications, was that iPhone crash alert, and that occurred at 11:53 last night.
And it took a few hours, I guess, to figure out what exactly had happened.
It was dark, obviously no lights. The search ensued, and with everybody, with that aerial and ground search, it took them, at least a couple of hours until they were able to locate the crashed aircraft.
Is there any communication between the towers? I'm sorry, I don't know how the single engine planes work, to indicate that there was an engine issue or just they were experiencing any issue at all?
That will be part of the NTSB investigation.
And so the plane was coming from Ocean City, New Jersey to Montgomery County. Any idea how it ended up, in this area? Any indication maybe they were trying to land at Bowie or anything like that?
As far as we know, the plane was en route to the air park in Montgomery County. We believe it was a training flight. And at this point, we don't know what ensued between Ocean City, New Jersey and Bowie. That's all part of the investigation.
Is it typical for training flights to go out that late at night?
That also is part of the investigation.
Were there any conditions, whether it was a storm or rain or any activity like that could have impaired the pilot or the flight?
I can't answer that question on the weather. PG County Fire, do you have anything from the phone call?
We don't have anything to clarify that now.
So it was just the iPhone that notified authorities. Did anyone call, perhaps? Did anyone see anything as it came into this area?
We don't have any other information at this point from any eyewitnesses or anybody that heard anything. The only thing we have is that iPhone crash alert.
Can you go into how the iPhone crash alert works for people who don't know?
Carol, I guess Maryland's police, I don't know about, man, this is kind of strange.
I don't have that information. Does anybody have iPhone crash alert?
The iPhone, same as like an Apple Watch, would have notification when you set up like an SOS in your phone contacts. Any significant impacts or falls can notify SOS members that you've set up on your phone. That's a feature through Apple or your phone provider. So
does that contact go straight to
whoever the SOS is?
Okay, so it doesn't go to law enforcement?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay, so somebody had to call law enforcement.
I don't know how the SOS system works on the iPhone side, but I know like you could set up a family member or a loved one to set up on your SOS, and it notifies them of a fall or impact. So,
Are you able to provide the name of the training school or relationship of the people on board the plane?
I do not have the name of the flight school. That is all part of the investigation.
Do you believe that there was a pilot and then 2 students, or?
Again, we don't have the identification of the deceased at this point is still pending next of kin notification, nor do I know how they are related to the flight school.
You don't know if they're from here.
I do not.
Okay.
You said earlier that the plane was found at about 3:45 a.m. Can you share what authorities saw when they arrived at the scene and eventually found the plane?
I'd like to turn that over to Prince George's County Fire Department. You were the first on the scene, were you not?
I'm not sure what. I haven't talked to the initial responders when they arrived, but they did a extensive search, both ground and air, using they had aviation assets in the air as well, looking for an accident. iPhone crash notifications are something we receive through our public safety communications. So when we'll initially dispatch off of that for the initial location and then work out from there.
Basically, what does it look like across beyond this fence? Because we're hearing that it's right there in those trees, right?
Okay, that was a weird update there, Carol. That was her state. Carol's from Maryland. Okay, we got 2 new ones here. About 4 minutes on the first.
Video and then come right back, okay?
And black folks wonder why people don't like them.
Austin Bob, knife had blood on the tip when he dropped. How the he's gonna stop me? He's going out back Marlo out the box. I sound when he died the floor, but I got side. Nigga text my phone, talk about he don't like my stop behind night. Austin Bob, knife had blood on the tip when he dropped. How the fuck he's gonna stop me? He's going out back Marlo out the box. I sound when he died the floor, but I got side. Nigga text my phone, talk about he don't like he got stopped behind night. Once session was over, coughing bloody, think he got Ebola. To the spittle. I said on the Drake for like I can fly fast, get behind us and waving about how you leaving. Austin Bob, knife had blood on the tip when he dropped. How he's gonna stop me? He's going out back Marlo out the box. I sound when he died the with his floor, but I got side. Nigga text my phone, talk about he don't like my.
I don't know why
They done made a song, a TikTok challenge, mocking the death of Austin Metcalf.
Oh, that's why.
Well, guys, I saw this video. It reminded me of what went on with Charlie Kirk. And I thought to myself, well, I'm going to have to come on there and make a video and piss everybody off and get a whole bunch of messages sent to me that TikTok won't find a violation with, because they didn't have a problem with that video either, okay? Remember the rules, guys. If you are white and you say anything negative about a black criminal, your account will be struck. If you are a black criminal with no soul, and you are pretending that you are unaliving a white person, TikTok gives you a high five and puts your video out there. So keep that in mind. So I was going to come on here and I was going to say to you, soulless, demon-possessed, I don't know what you are, you got your 5 minutes of fame and you got your little likes. But what else did you get out of that? In the future, we may or may not see your photo again. More than likely, we won't, because it'll probably be some low-level robbing the Dollar General store. But here's the thing I want to point out. Oh, and I was going to come on here and say, hey, for all of you business owners, take a good look at these young men and young women. We don't want to hire them. And then I thought, I don't think we got to worry about that. Then I thought, well, you guys can never run for politics, and I'll be damned. Yes, you can. You can run for the Democratic Party. They don't have a problem with what you do or what you've done, okay? But then I started thinking about something even more thoughtful than that. Who's going to remember your name? We're going to remember Austin Metcalf's name for years and years and years and years. Charlie Kirk's name will be remembered for hundreds of years. Austin Metcalf, I mean, who's going to forget his name? Who's going to remember your name? What have you got? Okay?
Yeah.
What have you got? Absolutely nothing. You got a TikTok video of you pretending to unalive yourself, making fun of somebody who was unalive. Do you know what the chances are of someone you know being unalive by someone you know? You know what I'm trying to say? Just like the truth came out, that actual video came out, the 11-minute video that shows what really happened with Austin Metcalf. But y'all, what do y'all say? It was edited. It don't matter, right? you guys are pieces of shit. Those videos that you posted, you got your little likes from your like-minded people, but intelligent, beautiful, kind, loving Black people do not find you funny. They don't find it cute. In fact, you're hurting it for everybody, okay? But hey, keep on keeping on, because all you're doing, you've made this boy a martyr. We're never going to forget Austin Metcalf's name. And if y'all hadn't showed your asses and acted so stupid like you're doing now, hell, his name would have already been erased from our memory. Wouldn't even be thinking about it. But because of y'all, thank y'all. Thank y'all, just like y'all did with Charlie Kirk. This man's now a martyr. We're never going to forget his name. Thank you so much.
She had a good point there on that one. This is a short one, 2 minutes.
Ill parent, but I'm going to try to do it in a humorous way, because why keep crying? I think we should turn it into something funny. Turn it into something funny. Maybe people can relate, right? So here we go. How was school today? You going to tell me what happened? Nothing. Are you going to tell me what happened? Or am I going to have to beat it out of you? I don't know. Nothing happened. I already know what happened today. I already know. So you just need to go ahead and tell me, and it's not going to be that bad. But if I have to beat it out of you, it's going to be real bad. You understand me? Mama, I promise nothing happened. I don't know what you mean. I promise nothing happened. Right now, what happened today at school? I'm not. I'm just telling you, Mama, nothing happened. I already know what happened. I already talked to the teacher. She called me. You gonna tell me what happened right now. You understand me? Mama, what teacher? I don't know what happened, Mom. What teacher? I don't know what happened. Swear to God, I'm not. Are you out of your fucking mind? First of all, nobody called you. I haven't done anything because I'm scared shitless. You need to be on fucking meds is what you need to be, along with in a straitjacket. That's exactly where you need to be. Get your paranoid, psychotic, abusive ass and get the fuck out of here. I'm going to make these to show you what it was like living with them.
Okay, those are two new ones there this morning. Okay, I got the next three short ones here. Then next one will be an 8 one. All those three.
The new Earth is not a place that you will be transported to. It is a frequency that you become. And from that frequency, new structures arise, not imposed from above, but grown from within. This is not about replacing one set of rulers with another. It's about dissolving the very need for hierarchical control. You will see this reflected in new ways of living, in conscious communities forming around shared values, in healing modalities that treat the soul, not just the symptoms, in energy systems that draw power from source without destruction, in education that honors creativity over conformity, in governance that is circular, transparent, and inclusive. These are not idealistic dreams. They are blueprints already alive in the hearts of many. And as the old collapses, space opens for these new models to rise, not overnight, not perfectly, but organically like spring after a long winter. And the key is this: you are not waiting for it to happen. You are embodying it now. Every time you choose to live with intention, with kindness, with awareness, you are already living in the new Earth. Let it begin with how you speak, with how you rest, with how you care for your inner world. Let it ripple outward in your relationships, your work, your choices. Do not underestimate the power of these small daily acts. They are how we build the future.
Hope that was all right. We got Auntie for 3 minutes.
If you've ever taken advice from Auntie, make it this. Turn off your TV. Stop going to the movies. Stop, for the love of God, stop going to concerts. Stop giving these monsters your money, your attention, and ultimately, your love. Stop. To be quite frank and honest, I haven't even been one of those people looking forward to Epstein's list coming out for one very good reason. That list is nowhere near complete. And Epstein is by far, hands down, not the only Epstein. And Epstein Island is not the only place. In fact, there are far worse people out there than Epstein. Epstein was sloppy and messy, and he got caught. There are far more sinister people out there doing the exact same thing with the exact same people. The people that for so long, everyone has loved and adored. Watching their shows, their movies, their concerts, listening to their music, their songs, knowing every lyric of their songs by heart. Those are the people on the list. And at this point, we can all pretty much safely assume whether their name landed on that list or not. This world is a very, very ugly place. When this world is a place where children aren't even safe. What if I were to tell you that Epstein's list being revealed, all of the names on the list exposed, was actually mentioned in the Bible? Possibly part of Revelation itself. But before I get into this and share that information with you, I want you to listen to me, please. Do you ever wonder why the children have always been the target? Why horrible people do horrible, unspeakable things to innocent children? Why child trafficking is by far, hands down, the largest syndicate, the largest crime that has ever been committed, not only against humanity, but against children, against people and families themselves. Why disgusting people do horrible, in a place where children aren't even safe. What if I were to tell you that Epstein's list being revealed, all of the names on the list exposed, was actually mentioned in the Bible? Possibly part of Revelation itself. But before I get into this and share that information with you.
Oh, sorry about that one, Auntie. We didn't hear you very well on that one. All right. Okay, the next one is 4 minutes.
So historically verifiable that only one nation on earth fits the description. And in 2026, those prophecies are not waiting to happen. They are happening right now, in real time, before our eyes. Whether you live in United States or not, this concerns you, because what the Bible says comes next does not stop at any border. It reaches every nation, every person, every household on earth. Stay with me, because by the end of this, you are going to see something you cannot unsee. Most people think the Bible only speaks about ancient nations, Babylon, Persia, Rome, but God does not write history and then go silent. He said it himself in Isaiah 46, verse 10. I declare the end from the beginning, from ancient times, what is still to come. The most powerful nation on earth is not missing from his record. Open your Bibles to Revelation chapter 13. Now, before we read a single word, you need to understand one thing about this book. Revelation is written in symbols, images, pictures. God gave the Apostle John a vision, and John saw things he had no natural words for. So God communicated through images. And here is the rule. The Bible interprets its own symbols. You do not bring your imagination to it. You go back to Scripture and let God define what he said. Every symbol in Revelation has a key somewhere else in the Bible. When you find those keys, the meaning becomes unmistakably clear. Now, most people come to Revelation 13 looking for one thing, the mark of the beast, 666. That is real, and we will get there. But if that is all you see in this chapter, you are missing the most important part, because Revelation 13 is not describing one power. It is describing two beasts, two world powers, connected to each other. What the first one started, the second one finishes. And the second one is where America enters the picture. But to understand the second beast, you must first understand the first one, because everything about the second beast is defined by its relationship to the first. So let us start at the beginning and walk through this chronologically, step by step, nothing assumed. Revelation 13 verse 1. And I stood upon the sand of the sea and saw a beast rise up out of the sea, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and upon his horns 10 crowns, and upon his heads the name of blasphemy. John sees a beast rising out of the sea. Now what does the sea mean? We do not guess. Revelation 17 verse 15 tells us directly. The angel explains it plainly. The waters which thou sawest are peoples, and multitudes, and nations, and tongues. Sea in Bible prophecy means densely populated regions, the established, crowded nations of the known world, the old world, Europe, the ancient centers of power and civilization. So this first beast rises from the crowded, established nations of the earth. Now look at verse 2. And the beast which I saw was like unto a leopard, and his feet were as the feet of a bear, and his mouth as the mouth of a lion. Leopard, bear, lion. Those 3 animals are not random. In Daniel chapter 7, God gave the prophet Daniel a vision of 4 great world empires rising one after another. In that vision, Babylon was represented by a lion. Medo-Persia was represented by a bear. Greece was represented by a leopard. And Rome was the 4th great terrible beast that crushed everything before it. Those 4 empires dominated the ancient world in sequence.
I hope that one was okay. I got a 10-minute one video with JD Vance. I'm arriving to that meeting this morning. We got 13 minutes. You go. You go. I don't know how long. Oh, wait. I want to fast forward it.
पत्री बातें कि अभी यहाँ पे आ चुका है तो उसके बाद थोड़ी सी वीडियो की जाएगी और पत्री वक्त जो है वो अब यहाँ पे काफी इस्तक़बाल किया फील्ड मार्शल आसिम मुनीर से भी साफ़ किया तकरीबन अब यहाँ पे आ चुका है, तो इसके बाद गालबन अब
Okay. All right, guys. Mr. Prime Minister, go ahead.
Well, Vice President Jody Vance and my very dear brother, Prime Minister of Qatar and Field Marshal Sayyid Hassan Munir. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great day. A day which is going to promote peace and prosperity, not only in the region where crisis really created humongous challenges, but this will have global peace. And I must, at this point in time, with the fullest sincerity at my domain, thank President Donald Trump for his visionary and very dynamic leadership, which has resulted in this meeting here today in beautiful city of Bergenstock. And I think here we are going to have wonderful discussions, which will lead to hopefully very productive results in times to come. I'd like to thank Vice President Jerry Van for his very able leadership, leading United States team, and my very dear brother, Prime Minister of Qatar. He's like a very real and dear brother. And of course, Field Marshal Sayyid Hassan Munir, his outstanding role, very consistent, and he showed huge amount of perseverance and patience. And I think together, all these efforts have culminated here in this wonderful Schönes Bergen. And it's really very wonderful to be here. And hopefully when we go back to our homes, we'll have some wonderful paper in our hand, which will both promote peace, progress, and prosperity around the globe. Thank you very much. Vice President, would like to say a few words?
7 minutes.
Wonderful.
Well, I'll say just a few words here. And first of all, I have some notes of appreciation. First of all, I want to thank the President of the United States, who sends his best to all the great leaders assembled here, because he's empowered us to find a diplomatic resolution to a host of issues that matter to the American people, but I think the world. The opening of the Strait of Hormuz, the ending of the Iranian nuclear program, all of these things have already been accomplished. The question before us now is how much more can we accomplish together? Can we turn over a new leaf? Can we change relations in the Middle East permanently? Or do we go back to doing things the old way, which is not our preference, but is certainly very much something that can happen. I have a few other notes of appreciation. First of all, to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, a dear friend of the President's, a dear friend of mine, a guy who has been, with his leadership and his very careful and skilled negotiation, has got us to this point. To his Field Marshal in Pakistan, Asim Munir, I will say that since Field Marshal Munir welcomed us with the Prime Minister in Islamabad, I have joked that I have two very, very important people in my life, an Indian and a Pakistani. The Indian is my wife, and the Pakistani is Field Marshal Munir. And I've probably talked to Field Marshal Munir more than I've talked to anybody else over the last 3 months. Would not be here without his statesmanship. He is a military leader, but I think he's shown himself to be a great diplomat. And of course,
hi, I'm JT, and I made Result Hunter, the search engine for conservatives. Let me just tell you what it does. First of all, big tech right now is run by a bunch of elitist people.
Who's an amazing friend of the United States of America, but has been also an important part of getting us to this point. I think it's important for the American people, but people all over the world to appreciate that what's brought us to this moment is the president's leadership and the president's willingness to see a Middle East that is much different 10 years from now than it was 10 years ago. And what we're trying to accomplish here is something very simple. Through diplomacy, through working together to transform the Middle East, where Iran and the Gulf have been at war with each other, or at least have had very unfriendly relations, where Iran has been a driver of regional instability. Now we see a future where everybody can work together to promote peace and prosperity for everyone. What we have already seen back home in the United States is lower gas prices. We've seen the free flow of oil and gas. We've seen peace. And now we're trying to build on that to see if we can build something even better and more sustainable for the future. This is a historic meeting. Never before, outside of Islamabad and here, so outside the last few months, never before has the Iranian and American leadership met at such a high level. What the president has asked us to do is turn over a new leaf, to transform our relationship with the people of Iran and to extend an outstretched hand that says to the people of Iran that if your leadership is willing to give up being a driver of regional instability, if they are willing to give up nuclear weapons ambitions for the long term, then the United States is willing to fundamentally transform our relationship with that country. That is certainly our goal. We've already made great progress over just the last few hours, and I expect that we'll make additional progress in the hours to come. Thank you all.
Is it possible just one question, Mr. Lance? The main issue is
Let Sheikh Mohammed speak, please.
First of all, I would like to welcome you here, Mr. Vice President, Mr. Prime Minister, your leadership and Field Marshal leadership actually initiating that process. That's what brought us here today. I think that every one of you has highlighted how important is this meeting, how historic is that event, and how significant is that agreement, not only on the security of the region, but also for the security of the world and for the global elite. We have done and what we have achieved, we wouldn't achieve it without the dedication and the hard work that was done by you, Mr. Vice President, and Mr. Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, Prime Minister and Field Marshal, and also on the Iranian side, Dr. Ghalibaf and Dr. Arakji. I would like to thank all of you for your leadership and determination that put us in this room, and this is not really the main celebration. Our celebration when we reach the ultimate agreement. Hopefully this is just the beginning, and I wish everyone all the best. Qatar will stay dedicated to this partnership to support these mediations until the end, until we reach a solution. We will always be a partner in bringing more peace, prosperity, and hopefully better future for our region. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Sheikh. So guys, we'll take just a couple of questions, and then we're going to have to kick out the media and get started with the hard work. Go ahead.
Do you have a message for Prime Minister Netanyahu with regards to Israel's military operations in Lebanon?
Well, first of all, we've seen great progress over the last just couple of days in ensuring that the ceasefire holds in Lebanon. These things are always a little bit messy. If you go back to how much was happening 3 months ago and compare it to 3 weeks ago, great progress has been made. If you go back to 3 weeks ago to 3 days ago, additional progress has been made. The president has committed us to see a full regional ceasefire. We found great partners in working with the Qataris, the Pakistanis, our friends in Israel. We're all working towards regional peace. There, of course, are going to be sometimes disagreements about precisely how to get there, but I actually feel great about where we are in Lebanon. There's still some additional wood to chop, but we're going to keep on working at it. The question over here.
Your alignment, Israel has something like genocide in Lebanon. The main issue is stopping this.
Well, ma'am, I think that the President of the United States and the United States of America have done more to stop the conflict in Lebanon than any government anywhere in the world over the last few months, and we're going to keep on working towards it. As I think a lot of you appreciate, peace is never easy. Peace always requires a little bit of work. It always requires a little bit of give and take. But the President of the United States is committed not just to peace between the United States and Iran. The President is committed to a regional peace, which is why we're here working so hard to settle our issues. The one last comment I want to make is what today really represents is the beginning of a technical negotiation that's not going to solve every disagreement, but is going to allow us to sit together as teams for the first time really in history to figure out what matters most to the respective parties, to settle those issues, to solve those issues, and get to a better tomorrow. The reason why the political leadership of the respective countries is here is because we wanted to, first of all, set up the structure for these technical negotiations, and second of all, make sure that our teams have our full support and know they can always call on us to break through any barriers. We got a lot of work to do. We're excited to do it. Thank you all for being here.
Okay, I hope that was a big update there. We got the next one is the first Derek New video will be 15. Then we'll play Billy Bean 30-minute one. A lot to cover today. I don't know if anybody saw this one yet.
Versus
making it look like the people that you're somebody that someone needs to listen to, when most of the stuff they're butchering. They're not even correct on it. And when there's a solid blueprint in place, a #1 bestseller signed at Trump International with President Trump present, 43 days before the dash was put on his ball cap, by me, retired veteran, that outlines everything to a detail where no one will have to fumble, no one will have to fear. Everyone who reads, studies, and comprehends can walk away going, oh my gosh, this is awesome. No fear, no stress, no anxiety. When there are people out there trying to take my work, hard-earned work, hard blood, sweat, and tears, and everything else that's gone into it, and my colleagues out there, because I'm not just doing this, this is all, I speak for a lot of people that are not on this screen. And especially when I give credit where it's due. I don't have to share a lot of work because my work is the blueprint, but when I do have to share people, guess who gets credit? The person who thought of it. You cannot drain the swamp by replicating it. And anyone out there who you see, especially once you've read or studied or seen anything on my pages, if someone else is out there doing that and trying to act like a creator, and they're sitting there telling you this, that, and they're not giving credit where it's due, that's plagiarism, for one. That's theft of intellectual property. And it's also, from a civilian side, they're taking away from all of us veterans. And you patriots wonder why more veterans aren't more vocal and more visual and have platforms, because they hate hypocrisy. You could be sitting here saying, hey, I'm the one that established that. Or you could have someone over there saying, hey, that guy right there, he's the originator. That guy right there is the colonel. That's the general. That's the so-and-so. That's that. And you'll still have people go follow some schmuck over here who has nothing to do with it, and there's the originator sitting right over there. And those people, you follow their schmuck. Do you know what that replicates? Go on and drink the Kool-Aid, fools. Go on and drink the Kool-Aid. You all demand, you all in that category, not you patriots, but you all in that category, you demand change, you demand things to be cleaned out, you demand justice, but you're following the same people who create the corruption.
His internet. Oh, don't tell me.
So intellectual property is kind of like this. One, I write all my thoughts down right here. My way of weaving it. Well, there's a blueprint now that I created. And because the blueprint covers so much material, and it's from the beginning to what's going to be the end, which is highly and heavily special operations, all right, which is what that ball cap is back here, which you cannot purchase anywhere. All right, it's also what this bag is right here that you can't purchase anywhere. All right, things like that. You either have to be special operations in active duty, National Guard, reserves, etc., or you can be recruited externally from other special operators. And a lot of you veterans out there, hey, if you got the mind, the thought process, you deserve it because you may have been some capacity.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, I'm gonna play it from here, you guys. See if it gets sort of.
Seller signed at Trump International with President Trump present 43 days before the dash was put on his ball cap by me, retired veteran, that outlines everything to a detail where no one will have to fumble, no one will have to fear. Everyone who reads, studies, and comprehends can walk away going, oh my gosh, this is awesome. No fear, no stress, no anxiety. When there are people out there trying to take my work, hard-earned work, internally from others, the undesirability. You cannot sit there and claim that anyone's violating.
I'm going to do a different one. That one's not working, you guys. Hang on a second. I got a second one I'll play. Yeah, let's try this one. 10 minutes.
Derek Johnson here, also known as Rattletrap 1776. So, the most recent thing that just takes the cake, the ice, and everything, man, is the federalization of the National Guard into D.C. So you have Ohio, West Virginia, and South Carolina states going into D.C. So if you can believe in that federalization, then you must believe in all federalizations. All right. So the biggest catch is, obviously, for a lot of people, is because you see President Trump visually, right, in office right now. To the average person, they see that. But military laws, military orders as prescribed on paper, and also federal laws as prescribed on paper, have not been followed the last 50, 60, 70 years, however far you want to go back. You can go back as far as you want to go. But especially after World War II, when everything kind of slid off track, with the amendment of the War Powers Act of 41-42 in 1973, and how a president can only declare a national emergency to use the National Guard, so or military period for that matter. So it was the limitation of powers, but it backfired on them. See, everything right now is backfiring on all the Democrats and liberals and their little games they were playing. So you just take all their literature and you reverse it on them. So it's not a psyop, it's a counter psyop. But it's, straight up military operation, military occupation, continuity government, using unconventional warfare, irregular warfare, which will be your clandestine and covert operations. So they're secretive until we want you to know that they've been used. But this is all public laws and orders as well, though. Everything I talk about, it's all public. You go look on a .gov or .mil site. But the most recent is the federalization into D.C. And then you have, quote unquote, Gavin Newsom, who basically all he does is confirm, validate not only the operation, but also my #1 best-selling books, The Midnight Rider Rides Again, Part 1, Part 2. And it's not about that, but it is from another angle, because they're the only books that outline the 45-47 military operation, military occupation, continuity government, what the whole world's been watching and didn't realize what they've been watching. So let's just run over his quotes. Gavin said specifically that President Trump's a wartime president.
Yeah, that's right.
One validation. He also said, do you not see what's taking place? This is going to be in every city soon. The National Guard are going to be in every city. So that's optics and comms, because you've already seen National Guard if you've been paying attention. And especially all of my fellow veterans out here, you already know, we already know. All right, so there's that. And then he turns and says another thing that's the key. Now, I've already proven everything. I have so many validation points that I don't need anymore, but this one right here takes the cake. When he said specifically that the National Guard are going to be at the election polls. They've already been there. I mean, so the next election will be this November, right? And then the next presidential election, is on out there from where we sit right now. So it's quite humorous, right, to go sit there and go, wow, all the last 3 years, all the people who can know, could have known, should have known, he just validated what I've been saying this whole time. And it's not about me, again. But when people say, why aren't more veterans stepping up? Why aren't more veterans saying this? Why don't you have more support from veterans out there? Hey, I can't control what isn't and who doesn't. All you can control is who is and who's telling it. And then you go research that. So let's just look at the election polls. So 2018, 2020, 2022, and 2024, the National Guard had been at the polls. All right. Well, there's an order in place for that. There's no Title 10 order in place for that, but there's a Title 32 on the books from Mattis in 2018. So who was the president in 2018? So if the National Guard were at the polls in 2018 and 2020 with a 2018 Title 32 order, still federal, then where's the Title 32 order for 2022 and 2024? There's not one there. So as that sits, it could, to the average person, look like the days of old, where they continued executive orders and they continued certain orders, right? They just passed it to a new president, not President Trump. The whole thing was to look different from 2016 in the past. That's why he was an outsider. He couldn't be bought. He hasn't been bought. He hasn't been compromised, none of that. The laws and orders show this. So as it sits, it would look to anybody who knows laws and orders and how laws and orders work, it would look as if Joe was cohesive with President Trump. We also know that's not true because of the Biden laptop report and all the other things that's already been put in place, and also the Supreme Court dockets and everything that President Trump's been winning with all the quote unquote lawfare, right? So why isn't there a Title 32 order in place there? And we know for a fact the National Guard have been at the polls because nationalguard.mil reports this and other mainstream outlets have reported this. So what would the National Guard be at the polls for? Well, they collect what? The forensics, the actual numbers, because we operate with analog, not digital. So we can get real-time, live-time, actual number count of who is and who isn't voting correctly, how many votes came through, etc. All right. And then also you can't be at the polls if you're in your uniform, whether it's a single man, two man, however many, it doesn't matter. You cannot be at the polls. That is a Title 18 federal law. You can go look that up. And it says specifically in that clause of Title 18, Section 592, when you go look that up, it specifically tells you that the troops have to be there federal, so it's presidential, and then they're to do what? To repel the armed enemies of the United States. I mean, that's some very, very strong language there, to repel the armed enemies of the United States. And so we know for a fact the National Guard have been there 2018, 2020, 2022, 2024. It also ties into President Trump's executive order 13848 with the national emergency from September the 12th, 2018, which is for election interference. That quote unquote Joe continued 4 years in a row. Just to pass back to President Trump on January the 20th, 2025. So Joe would damn his whole administration on his own if he was real. That's what that's saying. And then also, he never revoked or rescinded the Title 32 order. And we know for a fact the troops were at the polls in 2022 and 2024. So see, that's why you got to know laws and orders. Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. That 1550 clause tells you everything. And every order after that clause put there December the 20th, 2019 is under that. And that's your War Powers Act. And it also tells you that that's not an amendment to the whole War Powers Act. It's a temporary placement from the NDAA of 2020, which means it's a strategic operation. It's budgeted by the Department of Defense, all right, and budgeted through the Congress. So guess what else? It was a Democrat-controlled House of Representatives under President Trump when that was passed. So it tells you it's bipartisan. So stop worrying about who isn't saying anything and start focusing on who is. And then go start studying what we know and how we know it. All right, that's the key thing right there. Also, my official pages. Be careful.
Okay, that's a first full one. We finally got a good one from Derek. The second one must have issues with. Okay, the next one, Billy Bean, and then that's going to be a 30-minute one.
In Texas about 11 a.m. And thanks for like, subscribe, and share. Some of the things we'll cover: Earth on fire, Cuba, Marines rescue, President Trump, fury, and Russia hits Ukraine bridges, and the IRGC tells the Iranian government you can't be on TV. So let's get started. So I'm going to begin with space weather, Earth weather, what's going on. So we have some significant changes. So in the Earth, we have a core. And in the fall of 2020, God said to me, magma is rising in all directions. So that's going on. Plus, we've had for decades a decreasing strength of our electromagnetic shield that emanates from the core out the poles. So our shield is weakening, letting in from the sun more radiation. So we have inside the Earth, from the core of the Earth, or center of the Earth, magma rising in all directions, combining with more radiation into the Earth. This is now affecting inside the Earth, core, mantle. So we're seeing now from the core protrusions coming up and impacting the Earth, and the primary areas where the Earth is being impacted includes Africa and the U.S. So we have Africa, we have the U.S., and we have the Pacific Ocean. So these protrusions coming up through the mantle, bringing more heat, and gigantic hotspots are coming up under Africa and also under the Pacific Ocean, which will directly impact the U.S., especially in terms of earthquakes. And this information comes from YouTube Space Weather, formerly Suspicious Observers. And so we see this correlates also to what I've been putting forth, a 1,000-year cycle. Some say 13,000 years. There are smaller divisions in it, 6,000 years. One of these impacts or changes in Earth occurred several thousand years ago in the flood of Noah. I do not expect an extinction level event this time because God's people are on Earth, and I don't believe that's in the timeline that God has set for Earth. Now, there are indicators that we could have some significant geologic changes, including especially in California with the San Andreas Fault all the way up to Cascadia. And this would be directly impacted from heat in the ocean, also activating earthquake volcanoes. And this would correlate and bring also more stress on the fault lines. And we do see that going on. So it's a good time to pray and prep. And we have this from Mary Greeley. 100 degrees Fahrenheit in London. A feel-like temperature in some areas up to 118 degrees Fahrenheit. And we know Europe isn't as much into air conditioning as the U.S. But that's another indicator of earth changes going on. And we have this today, June 21, from NASA NOAA Space Weather. We had an M3 class flare. We have the sun turning to face the earth, very likely to bring us strong flares in a few days, and possibly additional flares later today. And we have this also, June 21 is the summer solstice, the longest day of the year. And we have this. So we have also, we've been seeing for decades also a rift. So a rift is like a crevice opening up in Africa. We also have an unfinished rift affecting the U.S. that logically could, as we go through this major weather earth change event, I believe Ben Davidson predicts 2030 to 2049. We could also see this unfinished rift near the U.S. opening up, and we have many sources, including the U.S. Navy, that we could see a split. Also in the U.S., along the Mississippi River, up into Canada, opening a new sea. And we have the rift in Central America and Africa is now determined to be the strongest in Central Africa. So that's going on. We're also seeing with our electromagnetic shield, well, the magnetic north and south poles moving. So I'll explain this to you. It's best to draw it out. We'll have to have new geology books written in the future. So we have Earth. We have a geographic north and south pole. We also have magnetic poles. That's what we see on our compass. Currently, the North Magnetic Pole is in Canada. It is predicted to move toward Russia all the way to the north, Siberia. We've been seeing changes in our magnetic poles to the extent that airports are having to realign their navigation systems. So that's been going on. And we're seeing movement in our magnetic poles, and the movement spikes, then it goes down and stabilizes and then goes back up and so on. So it's being predicted the speed of the change of our magnetic poles will increase by 100 times by the 2040s. And what we'll have to do, and we're also in the process of a pole shift. That means what we see in our compass pointing north will in the future actually point south. This will be very confusing. That's why I suggest several books will have to be rewritten. When that happens, we will have the magnetic north, the pole shift, actually
Check this out. I'm going to show you how I afforded this car.
Flying Eagle, did you get an update on how long that interview with Jan last night with that guy that we talked about?
Okay, you ready? All right, $118 for car insurance. That's how much I was paying, okay? I picked up the car a few months ago, and watch this, ready? $97 premium, $20 were my fees, $118. Now, I covered up my private information, guys. $39, $118. Check this out, ready? $500 for comprehensive, $500 for collision, $500 for comprehensive, $500 for collision, okay? The same make and model, Hyundai Ioniq, okay? My guy.
So the magnetic north, what we'll see on our compass, will actually be in the geographic South Pole. This will be, this will have to be covered in school and from several directions. So that's going on. We do see an increase in the slip rate of the San Andreas Fault, and I submit that's tied to the magma rising, also more radiation coming in, and that hot area under the Pacific Ocean that will impact the West Coast and fault lines. So we see slip rate increasing in San Andreas. We have more pressure in the area of San Andreas than we've seen in 1,000 years. And that space weather on YouTube, Ben Davidson is predicting a mega quake that will begin at the San Andreas. So it'll begin at the San Andreas, but it will extend all along the West Coast, all the way up to Cascadia, near Canada, in 5 to 20 years. And that the magnetic poles are seeing a sharp increase in speed of movement, up to 100 times the current speed, with the magnetic poles moving and also the pole shift occurring 2030 to 2049. So that's going on. And when the cycle of significant earth changes comes, like 13,000 years, smaller events, 6,000, and so on, we also see a direct correlation and changes on the earth in terms of economy and war. We have this from Stephen Gardner. The FBI has arrested Phil Kimbrell. I believe they arrested him in the Philippines for a $1.2 billion Medicare fraud that he perpetrated 2014 to 2019. He has been arrested. So way to go, President Trump. We have this from a Patriot subscriber. We get such conflicting information. And my subscriber says, the owners of the world, we would call the deep state, truly thrive on power, death, and money. I agree. My Patriot subscriber, regarding the new information being put out by DNI Tulsi Gabbard as she leaves office, that Fauci lied and was in charge of the NIH for 40 years, and also paid for the Wuhan lab in China to produce the COVID bioweapon. But my Patriot subscriber says, my mom and I tried to warn family members, don't take the ouchie Fauci. And now they're paying the price. And thank you, Billy Bean, for this information. So that's going on. Now we have this. We have from Real Raw News in Cuba. The Marines have rescued American children being kidnapped and used for slave labor in Cuba. So this was near the Pinar del Rio tobacco plantation. 2 American children, ages 12 and 14, who were kidnapped and within the past several years, were rescued by 24 devil dogs out of Camp Lejeune, the 2nd Marine Raider Battalion. And they had received intel from a Cuba military defector about the location of the children, and they then went to the plantation. They observed the plantation using thermal optics and night vision on their sniper rifles. And this happened last weekend. And the Marines were also using encrypted radio and signaled objective sighted. And 1 week earlier is when U.S. Military Cyber Command had intel from a Cuban military defector regarding the tobacco plantation owned by Habanos S.A., who distribute the worldwide famous Cuban cigars. And they had kidnapped these American children to be used as slave labor on the tobacco plantation. And the children had been kidnapped, the first one 7 months ago and the second one 9 months ago. The U.S. military received full names of the American children from the Cuban defector. They could then double check it against the U.S. database of missing children. And the U.S. government in this situation decided to skip diplomacy and go straight to military action. Then the devil dogs went to Gitmo and then went to the tobacco plantation where the guards were neutralized by the Marines, who then located the kidnapped children. And the Marines and the kidnapped children, as the Marines brought the children to a waiting CH-53 helicopter out of Gitmo, cradling children in their arms as they approached the extraction helicopter. Way to go, President Trump. It's good to place the lives of American children, and all children for that matter, above diplomacy and go straight to military action. That's what we love about President Trump. He's not a man of just words, which are interesting, but of action. We have this from U.S. Intel.
Make your browser fast. Make your browser safe.
Russia is now planning to take harsh measures against Ukraine in response to Ukraine's recent multi-drone attacks on Russia's oil and gas industries. And that it's being stated by a Russian advisor to President Putin, Sergei Garaganov, that Russia is making plans to also hit European countries who are directly involved in supplying Ukraine with weapons. I will submit this. What is the position of the U.S. against Russia for Russia directly supplying weapons to Iran? Just saying. So this advisor to President Putin said on Russian TV, Russia will hit Europe within 1 year. And we understand the plans being put in place by Russia are to take place in 2027, so a few months from now, at which time Russia will hit directly Germany, Poland, and Romania because they are arming Ukraine. So that's going on. And now we have this from Borzikman. Now, Borzikman is a pro-Russian site, but you do get some truth there. Russia is advancing in Ukraine to take Kharkiv and Donetsk. And Russia had a missile hit June 20 when they hit inside Ukraine. So that was yesterday. Odessa, Nikolaev, Dnipro, and Kharkiv. Also on June 20, Kiev was hit by unidentified groups who seized armories, and Zelensky fled Kiev. And we have this, that a Ukraine reserve military officer, Colonel Olaf Ivanovkov, has stated that Zelensky has made many enemies within the Ukraine oligarchs who are now paying for foreign paramilitary groups to strike against Zelensky and the Ukraine military. So that's going on. And we have this. Yeah, the unidentified groups, we now have a better idea of who they are. And in these paramilitary groups, when they seized armories inside Kiev yesterday, also killed security and Ukraine police.
8 minutes, you guys. 8 minutes.
And the British Special Service inside Kiev evac Zelensky. So that's going on. And we have this from Dabu, that two Zelensky locations are being targeted by Russia. Russia is making hits inside Kiev. And that Zelensky is on the run. As I put out, the UK Special Forces inside Ukraine evac Zelensky. And that Russia is hunting Zelensky. So that's, and Russia also announces it's no longer going to use the Geneva set of rules for war. We have this from Military Summary. Russia hit June 20 yesterday. Bridges in several areas across the Dnipro River in an effort to split Ukraine in their logistics roads and avenues east to west. So taking out bridges would definitely bring that about. And we have this going on in Iran. So we have a delegation from Iran arriving today, or early this morning or late last night in Switzerland. Iran said, no, we're not going to Switzerland, but they changed their mind. It's also believed Israel also has a team on the ground in Zurich, Switzerland. We know that Israel is not directly involved in the negotiations between Iran. Iran has their Speaker of their government, Ghalibaf, Foreign Minister Arachi, and other people. The U.S. has Vice President Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner. We do not know who is on the Israeli team that is in Zurich, Switzerland, but staying at a separate location. And we do not know why. Israel has a team there, but we can speculate. And we have this, that Iran has once again closed the Strait of Hormuz yesterday, which has infuriated President Trump, who said, effing Iran for closing the Strait of Hormuz. I can only imagine, since he demonstrates he's a man of action, what will come about. Correlating with the current talks going on. Now, Iran is saying that they're in Switzerland simply to finalize the MOU and not to begin any negotiations for the 60-day period, which we understand is beginning today. So June 21, America's there, Iran is there. They also have mediators from Pakistan, Qatar, and other Middle Eastern countries. But Iran says they're not engaging in any 60-day negotiations regarding any kind of talks about nuclear material or nukes inside Iran.
This fan has been running for 3 weeks straight. My bedroom is still 91 degrees at night, and my power bill is $340 a month. Now watch this. You plug this in, you press one button, give it 90 seconds, come back and...
It's about over.
And that Iran says ships will need to contact Iran 48 hours before they attempt to cross the Strait of Hormuz. And of course, Iran wants concessions. They're not calling it tolls now. They're calling it an environmental fee. So that's going on in direct opposition to the MOU. And we have this. The IRGC says that the Iran government cannot continue to speak on Iranian TV, and that the IRGC was contemplating maybe a house arrest for Ghalibaf. He's the speaker of their government, but we know he's now in Switzerland. The IRGC appear to be nutballs who can best be interacted with by neutralizing them with extreme prejudice. Nutballs. So Ghalibaf was speaking on TV when he was cut off by the Iranian TV station at the direction of the IRGC. And Ghalibaf is now being restricted by the IRGC from addressing the Iranian people on TV. And we have this. Yeah, so the U.S. Considers today, June 21, to be the beginning of the 60-day negotiations under the MOU, Memorandum of Understanding. And Iran says no, they're not engaging in that, and they don't accept that the 60-day negotiation is beginning now. And hints are being made about a coup and then a counter coup going on inside Iran between the IRGC and the Iranian government. And we have this from U.S. Intel, that the Iran team, yes, has arrived in Switzerland, and we understand there's also an Israeli team on the ground. We have this from 2CTV, that Iran says in Switzerland they will finish the MOU, but no talks will be done regarding nukes nor the Strait of Hormuz. And we have also that Iran, IRGC is demanding that Israel leave Lebanon. while the IRGC maintains their terrorist group Hezbollah to hit Israel. Israel, within the past 24 hours, did bring about a ceasefire, but Israel is not withdrawing their military from Lebanon. So that's going on. It's a hot boiling pot. So a short prayer. This is based on Isaiah 29. We pray, Father, in the name of Jesus, whom many call Yeshua, that you form a shield before us with and bring about against our enemies thunder, fire, and earthquakes in strategic locations in Iran, to bind and destroy our enemies. And I say to my family and friends, continue to pray. God is in charge and he is on the move. I love you and I'll see you soon.
Okay, that was a big one today, huh, you guys? 30-minute one. All right, I got a 9-minute one. I don't remember playing this one, but let me know, guys.
They put a ticket on there. There's no contract, so you don't have to pay that ticket.
So what are your steps?
You send the ticket back to them.
No contract.
And you tell them no contract. They have to produce a contract where you sign to say that if you park somewhere that you're not supposed to, you will have to pay the ticket. I remember someone showing me a ticket not so long ago, and the ticket had a CEO. It says CEO on the ticket and a signature.
CEO?
Yes.
Chief Executive Officer?
Yes. So I sent the ticket back to the CEO, and I asked him when was he there at 8 o'clock at night putting tickets on the cars. It just goes to show that people do not look at their tickets either because they don't know. And it's very sad because a parking ticket, why should you have to pay for parking when you own the roads? We owned it. We own everything.
So you've sent your parking ticket back with no contract on it. What are the next steps that they like to take?
They would write to you and say you have to pay. If you pay within a certain time, it's only half. You have to pay half of the fine.
What's your response?
My response is I don't have to pay any because I don't have a contract with you.
So again, you ask them, show me the contract.
Yeah. I send them a letter and I ask them, I said, okay, the person that you addressed in this letter is spiritually dead and have no soul, which is your strong man.
Strong man.
Yes. And I said that I had not given you permission to use it to make money. And there's a fine behind this of £250,000 every time you use it. They refused to answer. So I sent them, the following letter was a default letter. I says, you're now in default for not responding because that's what they're going to do to you.
So you played law against them?
Yes.
Good.
Yes. So when I sent them that, 5 days later, I received a letter stating that the account is closed and I do not owe.
Very good. Thank you for that. Well, that's rather straightforward. Let's discuss mortgages because this is the bane of most people's existence. Is needing to secure their home. Everyone has the right to a home in this world. And mortgages, I mean, what's the etymology of mortgage in the first instance? Death grip, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It is.
Mortgage means death grip in French.
Well, the mortgage is what they do is just a front. Because the minute you miss a payment, when you get a mortgage from the bank, they're after you. The first time you miss a payment, it goes straight into the insurance company that the mortgage company have.
And they want you to miss a payment.
And they want you to miss a payment because they don't lend you money.
But let's go back. Your house is, let's say, worth $100,000. Now, when you apply for a mortgage, they don't have the $100,000, but you come along with your block black capital signature, you sign the application, they then monetize your signature by having $100,000 worth of your value discharged against your treasury bond. That money they then lend to you, and they double dip because they then get you to pay that money back plus interest.
What they do is they don't lend you that. They don't lend you anything. You fill up your papers and you sign. The signature is what they want. Then they tell you, okay, you have to be a good boy and you have to be good credit and you can borrow from me. So they lend you a piece of paper that you sign with very fine writing in the back. That's where the legalese comes in because that's what they do. Then you sign it, signature. They take that and they tell you, okay, the funds will be ready in 2 to 3 days to come back. The following day with the signature, they go into your trust fund and they get paid the 100,000. They never disclose to you that, okay, we got paid, so the house is now yours. No, they come back when you go on the third day, they've already got their money. They say to you, okay, this is the agreement. You pay so much every month, the interest rate, all that you've already signed for. So now they put the 100,000 on the computer screen for you, so you can finish your house closing. Now that 100,000 is just numbers.
Yeah.
It is not money because they all own the banks. So there's no money pass, no cash, just paper. But they have your 100,000 already. If you don't pay, they take the house. They don't want nothing. They want the property because the money is just paper. It has no value. So the property has value, so they take the property.
So let's talk about allodium title. What is allodium title? Why is it so important?
4 minutes.
Okay, allodium title is important because you do not own the land. They tell you it's freehold, but it's not freehold. The land is owned by the Crown. All the land in England.
I'm a farmer in Minnesota, and you're saying that my land is owned by the Queen.
Yes.
I'm a farmer in Mozambique.
Your land is owned by the Queen.
The Queen of England.
The Queen of England. She owns all the land. So what happens is you own that piece of brick that's sitting on it that they call freehold or your house. You own that. You don't own the land. So the land, the allodium title, is to own your land. So you can put a sign up and says no trespassing, private property. When you put that sign up, you have to own the land. Because owning the house doesn't mean anything. It's the land they want.
Last night.
See, the bank takes the house, which is part of the Crown, and the Crown owns the land. That's how it works. And you don't own anything.
Ever.
Ever. You are just a mere user.
So long as you are acting as your straw man. Now, when we reclaim ourselves from this fiction, and we do it as a people, many of us do it.
Yeah.
What then do you see? How do you see the dissolution of government, the dissolution of this behemoth, this Molochite monster that has taken over our lives, indentured us into bonded slavery all around the world, 7 billion souls, owned and controlled, indentured to a couple of hundred national reserve banks themselves, indentured into the Bank of International Settlements, that controlled through the US Treasury, the Federal Reserve, the IFC, the IMF, the World Bank, and so on, back to the Crown of England, and behind that, the Vatican. So all of that grotesquerie, that fiction, when do you see us as a people of the world reclaiming real reality from that fiction? And how is that likely to play out?
I think if people get to know and they come together, it doesn't take hundreds of millions. 1 million sovereigns get together can make a hell of a lot of difference because the word spreads from one to the other. And once people get to know that this is what is being done to them, it's going to be like wildfire. Once people get to know the law, what they're under, and what they're doing to them, and how they're making. You see, they make things to distract you, like the news and all this fake, all this stuff, television, and this is what they do. So once people can get together, if 100 people go to the bank and all keep taking out £100, before the end of the day, the bank will close It's very simple if people get to understand what's going on. And it would be good for them to know, because we need to stop this. We need to stop what they're doing to people, hurting people for no reason, put people in poverty.
And by they, we're talking about the parent corporation.
The parent corporation.
The
yes.
banks and governments and justice systems all working to penalize and harvest humanity.
Yeah, they're in bed together, everybody. They said, if they send you to the Citizens Advice Bureau, don't even bother to go, because they're working too with them. Everybody they have in their pocket. And it's very sad because people will do things to other people for very little money.
Are you hopeful for humanity?
I am, very much so.
Bibi Bacchus, thank you. I love you. I do love you.
What do you guys think on that one? How many saw that? All right, the next three, I got 3 3-minute ones. Then I got a Huckabee one that came out this morning. He's had a speech this morning. We haven't heard him yet this year. Oh, wait. I got to do the Trish video. 11 minutes.
Massachusetts, they announced 11 of 14, 15 people that have been arrested in this fraud situation in Massachusetts, stealing $1.4 million, were all here illegally. I mean, this is kind of nuts.
Alarmingly, 11 of the 15 charged defendants are suspected illegal aliens, some of whom assumed stolen identities to steal these taxpayer-funded benefits and avoid detection. American citizens were boxed out of these programs because illegal aliens took their names to then take their money.
That was the Justice Department just moments ago announcing 15 people are being charged with food stamp fraud in Massachusetts. The scams exploited food stamp, housing, and healthcare programs, costing taxpayers more than $1.4 million. 11 illegal immigrants, including some who have been living under stolen identities, are among those charged.
Gosh.
Home Depot hates when you do this, but they can't stop you.
You really want to just coat the whole thing?
You know, I gotta say, like, we've been really stupid, haven't we? We've allowed ourselves to get taken advantage of. The good news is, I mean, we elected Donald Trump. The bad news is we had 4 years of Biden. The bad news is places like California, I mean, look at the fraud that they're uncovering out there. You know, they were run by people who didn't care. Guess what? You don't care. If it's not your money, you tend not to care. You know, we don't even have to debate whether or not Gavin Newsom is guilty of anything, or his wife might be guilty of something. We don't even have to go there. Just let's just assume he's completely asleep at the switch. Of course he's asleep at the switch. This is why you got to keep government on a short leash, okay? This is why what government has, government will spend.
Another good one here.
And probably not the way a normal working American family would spend it. This is why communism always fails, okay? When you keep giving the state all the money, they get to hand it out to their cronies. Just ask Ilhan Omar how that went down, allegedly. $250 million later to feed our future. Yeah, feed the Somali fraudsters' future. They were running the fraud operation out of Minneapolis. You got to be kidding me. I mean, no, it's not okay. And it's got to actually stop. Because we need accountability. I mean, we got a lot of problems, okay? They look at the solvency of Social Security. I mean, we're running out of money. They thought that all these people could come in and help with that. Well, guess what? They can't because they're not here legally, okay? So they're not paying taxes. So there goes that idea. Instead, they just become drains on the system. If you're not contributing to the system, you're a drain on the system. And then, by gosh darn it, if you're actually engaging in fraud, such as the people we have learned about in Massachusetts and Minneapolis, well, then you're more than a drain on the system. So it's high time that we actually fix the system. I mean, we can't continue with a ledger that looks like ours when you think about the deficits that we run and the debt that we have collected. That's not going to work long term. But look at how much we may have saved. This is like Doge 2.0, right? We may have saved a lot if we can actually stop all this fraud and we can stop all of this money from going to all of these wild, stupid, crazy projects to nowhere. Lower taxes, okay? Less federal spending. If you are stupid enough to live in a place, sorry to our California voters and viewers, but you keep voting for people like Karen Bass instead of a Spencer Pratt, look what happens. And you might even get someone who's more left than Karen Bass out there with the ramen lady. I always forget her name and then I think ramen noodle. So the ramen lady. And Mamdani in New York City. I mean, you get what you voted for, I guess. Thank you, New York City. I'm glad I'm out of there. What a mess that's turning into. So we have to be more responsible. We have to think strategically. We have to think long term, and we have to think about the health of this country and our balance sheet. And whether it's here at home or whether it's overseas. Because overseas, we've also got to be cautious about who we're spending money on. We don't need to give all this money to USAID. Well, we cut all that out now, didn't we? We don't need to support the transgender comic book in Peru. We don't need the gay opera in Colombia. What was that, for goodness? What were they doing? They took over the world. You realize that, guys? They were taking over the world with their woke ideology that was just a recipe for disaster and devastation. But we changed that. And we're going to keep changing it. I'm looking at the chat. I know some of you guys don't like what happened with the Iran deal. Again, I'm a realist. And if we can get energy prices lower, we can buy some time to build some of those pipelines. It might work out. It might work out. I know both sides are mad about that. So, we'll continue. I just say, hey, give it a minute, okay? Give it a minute. Let's see what happens. He made it very clear that he's willing to go right back in and do whatever he has to do. So let's give it a minute and see if it works. And if it doesn't, we're armed, ready, and loaded. And we've put them in a much, much more difficult position. But again, I just think about all the money that we spend things on. And you think about the fraud. And you think about Europe, and you think about USAID and the entire world. It's over, okay? We're batten down the hatches. So NATO, consider yourself warned. You used to be 12 countries. Now you're 32. And look at that list. You see all those countries? We're going to go through them right one after another. And we're going to say, did you cooperate with us or didn't you? Are you paying into the NATO fund or are you not? If you're not, then I don't think you should be here, or we shouldn't be there. We don't need to be part of this. We don't need any of it. The world is changing. We're on the front lines of history. This is a very important moment. A very important moment. By the way, if you haven't gone to see my little company, 76 Research, you should take a look at those portfolios. A lot of good stuff there. Thank you for being here, everyone. It's wonderful to see you. It's nice to see so many compliments and nice things that you guys say in the chats. Please.
Okay, that was another good one. So did anybody hear about the Pizza Hut closing down? I don't know if that's true or not, but there's a video I'm going to play before I play Huckabee. It's about 10 minutes.
I was like, I'm taking it. I'm trademarking.
Welcome back in a lab from Fox. I'm your host, Anna Marsick. Pizza Hut has been a staple for decades, but some news came out this week Take a look at that post from Reuters. Yum Brands announced it is going to sell Pizza Hut for $2.7 billion, splitting that deal between Yum China Holdings and private equity firm Long Range Capital. So this deal is worth about $2.7 billion total.
I got one right
Joining
next
us right
to
now
me.
to break down what this means for the brand, we are joined by Bloomberg restaurant analyst Michael Halen. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live Now from Fox.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so first things first, let's just break down this deal. Who are these companies that are buying Pizza Hut?
Yeah, so the Chinese business is going to be bought by Yum China, which is publicly traded out there in China. Has been, Yum Brand's largest franchisee for quite some time. They were partnered in those restaurants with Yum Brand, so this made perfect sense. Long Range is, a private equity fund. They've don't have a ton of experience in restaurants, but they clearly see an opportunity to turn around Pizza Hut, which, has been, a tough go for Yum Brands for the last, decade plus.
And Yum Brands has, of course, owned Pizza Hut for a while now. So why did they decide that now was the right time to sell it?
Well, it's really the new management team. A new CEO came in, Chris Turner, and he's just more aggressive, I think, than his predecessor, right? And so they're not wasting any time to kind of re-image Yum Brands. And this was a key piece of the puzzle because it really gives their management team and their executive team, which is known to be as good as there is in the restaurant industry, a chance to focus on its primary growth drivers, which are Taco Bell, which is an absolute monster in the U.S. and around the globe, and KFC, which is very strong internationally.
How exactly is this Pizza Hut deal being structured?
Yeah, so this is going to be a cash deal. It being private equity, I assume they're going to borrow and lever this business up. Yeah, like I said, they must see something here. But the pizza industry, especially in the United States, is very, very competitive. And Pizza Hut has had a really tough 15 plus years. Domino's turned around their business in 2010. And since then, they've been taking share, quarter after quarter, year after year. And it's really taken a chunk out of Pizza Hut's business.
Pizza Hut, before they had those buildings that were kind of shaped like the hut and they had the all-you-can-eat pizza with the salad. Do you think when they strayed away from that business kind of declined a little bit? Are we going to see a comeback maybe of those buildings?
I think the buildings are tough because people want their pizza delivered fast and easy. And Pizza Hut was trying to convince their franchisees to open more of these smaller delivery-only stores because they make a lot more money, right? They're cheaper to build. The payback period is much shorter, and they have a stronger returns on investment, right? In my opinion, that real estate has kind of been a yoke on its neck for quite some time. I'd say the other reason why, this chain has struggled was in the U.S. anyway, has really been the quality, right? That we've seen a degradation in the quality over the years. The pizza market has become way more competitive over the last 15, 20 years, not only from the likes of Domino's and Papa John's, but also all the local mom and pop shops and all the brick oven and wood-fired oven pizza joints that we see cropping up everywhere. So it's definitely a tough business. And then, they're impacted by this K-shaped recovery. A lot of their customers here in the U.S. are low and middle income consumers, right? And inflation impacts those segments of the consumer much, much harder than high-income consumers, and that crimps their spending. And they're more likely to buy a frozen pizza at the grocery store than order Pizza Hut when times are tough.
Why do you think the sales being separated between China and all the other buildings?
Yeah, I think the real reason why is that Yum Brands wanted Yum China to own the China business. So in my opinion, that part of the deal happened first. And from there, Yum Brands most likely was on the search for someone to buy the U.S. and the European business. And and the entire international business ex-China. So that's why I think it was split into two buyers, because Yum China is focused on that country and they're not interested in buying other international markets or the U.S.
What does this mean for
at 7
consumers going
o'clock.
forward? Do you think that there are going to be significant changes maybe in the menu or how things are operated?
What I think is that quality will improve. That's the way I would approach it. I would try to improve the quality, because that's how Domino's took share from Pizza Hut. Pizza Hut was number one in 2009, 2010, and Domino's revamped their pizza, and that started off their very strong run. So if I was running Pizza Hut, I'd be very focused on the quality of the food. Once you can get people back in the stores, then you could do more, unique and limited time offers and unique offerings, and you can kind of play with the menu a little bit. They got to get the marketing right? And then once they can get sales to come back, from there, it's about convincing the franchisees to open more stores. And I'd have to assume it would be these smaller delivery and takeout only stores.
Are there any other people, or I guess companies, in the pizza game that are kind of giving Domino's a run for their money? Are they still like the clear front runner?
Yeah, Domino's has been on an absolute tear for, I guess it's like about 16, 17 years now. Papa John's has done well here in the U.S. in fits and starts. They're struggling a bit. Struggling a lot right now, and Pizza Hut has been struggling for quite some time. It's really been the regional players, as well as the independents, the local mom and pop shops have done, a nice job. Like they've increased the quality, the competition by increasing the quality, providing better quality for consumers.
Just looking at that $2.7 billion price tag, does that tell us anything about maybe the strength of the current company?
Couple minutes here.
Yeah, because the chain is huge. So, you could probably quibble if you want to, quibble about this deal. You're saying, well, they're not really getting a whole lot for Pizza Hut. But to me, it's really about just getting it off the books. They're going to take $2.3 billion after tax. They're going to use it to buy back shares. They'll be able to buy back about 6% of the float, right? And the market's going to give them a higher multiple in the market, because they're going to grow the top line and they're going to grow the bottom line a lot faster without Pizza Hut. So to me, it is really addition by subtraction.
Why do you need an LLC? Even if it's your first business, you don't want to link the business with your personal life.
Now, looking ahead, let's say 5 years, what do you think Pizza Hut's operations are going to look like?
Yeah, it's tough to say. The restaurant business is tough, especially in the midst of a commodity bull market where low-income consumers are getting squeezed. But I would expect that long-range capital management is going to be looking to improve the quality, open more of these smaller delivery and pickup only stores, trying to close these big red roof restaurants, because they are not doing the volume to justify the large rents that they pay. Back in the 80s, Pizza Hut was a monster. It was a place to be. People were going there, and you could justify paying those high rents, right? But they are located in some solid high rent places that you just can't justify paying those rents anymore. So.
Yeah, earlier this week in our newsroom, when we heard this news, we were talking about how some of those favorites that we had when we were kids, like Cece's Pizza and Hometown Buffet, like they've all closed down. Is it because of that same reason, where it's just you can't justify paying the high rent and stay afloat?
Yeah, that's part of it. I'd say that's more of a story for the last, handful of years. But just the restaurant business is so competitive, right? There's competition from everywhere, not just in the restaurant industry from other national players, but then regional players, then local mom and pop shops, from the grocery store, right? You have restaurants basically in the store now, and deli counters that are trying to take share. People are making food right out of their own kitchens and selling it in urban areas. Food trucks are all over the place. Like, this is a very, very competitive industry with competitors cropping up every day. It just makes it really difficult, you know. And some of these chains do have an advantage. Like Pizza Hut does have an advantage with its scale, with its size. It can offer prices that a lot of the smaller competitors can't match, but they have to sell a product that people want.
Anything else about this Pizza Hut deal that we haven't talked about that you might want to touch on before I let you go?
You know, I would just emphasize the point that Yum Brands is a very well-run company. They're Taco Bell especially, but Yum Brands as well is known for being an incubator of great talent. You know, and with this faster top and bottom line growth, you know, we expect this stock to get a better multiple in the market.
All right, Michael Halen.
Hey, that's the latest update with Pizza Hut from yesterday. Okay, we got one more 15. The rest I'll play the short ones for a short time there. A lot of stuff. They got a couple good ones for tonight.
In the ebook.
Thank you very much. Well, I'm deeply grateful. I was a little afraid when you all stood. I thought you were leaving. The very first speech that I made when I arrived here as ambassador was to JNS a year and a half ago. So today, before I got here, I did something that I thought was very important. I checked President Trump's social media to make sure this was not my last speech in Israel. As you know, he typically fires people in the middle of the night by way of social media. So I wanted to make sure that there was a reason for me to come. I'm happy to report that so far, so good. I know there's been an enormous level of anxiety about the relationship between the United States and Israel. It's been one of those weeks where here's what I just ask you to put in large print and underline it. I would say it this way. Thank you for your attention to this matter. The one thing that the president has said as consistently as any man has ever said anything is that Iran will never have a nuclear weapon, that Iran will never have enriched uranium, that Iran is not going to be able to continue flowing its support to its proxies, Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis, and that the United States and Israel have an unbreakable bond. And it really is still true today. There is no world leader that the president speaks to more than he does Prime Minister Netanyahu. Theirs is a relationship that is not just as two statesmen. It is deeply personal to the point that there is a candor between them that is probably unlike his relationship with anyone else. The president says things to people, and he says things to the world. But the one thing that I've always heard him say, always, and that I've always watched him do, is that America has an unbreakable bond with the state of Israel. And I trust that he means what he says. I still remember that he is the president that did something that we all wanted every president to do, and that's recognize Jerusalem as the undivided, indispensable, eternal, and indigenous capital of the Jewish people. And he did it.
Yeah,
to recognize the Golan Heights as sovereign territory of the state of Israel for its own protection. To move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, which he did, and I'm grateful for that. I'm so very thrilled to see the extraordinary video about Jerusalem and to hear the remarks of Mayor Moshe Leon. I don't just call him the mayor of Jerusalem. I love to call him my mayor. because I live here. And he has been a remarkable partner to the U.S. Embassy and to every need that we have had.
I don't think I can play that. I got some kind of warning here on something. It says, yeah, I better not. They gave me a warning on this one, you guys. I'm going to go on some short ones now.
Than $18 trillion. Even Europe, Japan, and India owe huge amounts of money. Every country is borrowing, every country is lending, and somehow the world is now $300 trillion in debt. So here's the question. If everyone owes money, then who are they actually paying it to? Who's collecting all this money, and how can the entire planet be in debt at the same time? It's a really simple question, but one with a surprisingly complicated answer. Let's start with the world's biggest borrower, the United States. Out of the $36 trillion that America owes, about $26 trillion is actually owed to Americans themselves. Yes, you heard that right. The US government borrows from its own citizens, banks, and pension funds through something called treasury bonds. Foreign countries hold only around $7 trillion of US debt. China owns about $750 billion. Japan holds roughly $1.1 trillion, and the rest is spread across nations like the UK, Switzerland, and Saudi Arabia. So in reality, most of America's debt is not to China, it is to its own people. Now let's flip the map. China might be lending to the US, but it's also drowning in debt itself. Chinese government, companies, and local provinces owe a combined $18 trillion, and that number is still rising. So who is China borrowing from? Mostly from its own banks, which are often state-owned. And those same Chinese banks also hold American debt. Yes, it's like a circle. Both countries owe each other money, directly and indirectly. It's not just the US and China. Every major economy borrows and lends at the same time. Japan lends money to the US. And when we say Japan lends money to the US, it means Japan buys US government bonds, which means basically lending money to America in exchange for interest. The US uses that borrowed money to fund its spending. Similarly, Europe borrows from Japan, which means European governments or companies take loans or issue bonds that Japanese investors buy, so Japan earns interest from Europe too. Similarly, developing countries also borrow from Western banks, and those same banks get investment from Asian and Middle Eastern funds because countries like Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Asian countries like Japan, Singapore, or China invest their savings into global financial institutions. So it's like a giant circle. And the truth is that the world's debt isn't really owed to one person or country. It's owed within the system, a web of governments, banks, companies, and investors constantly trading promises to pay. But then you might ask that why not just stop borrowing? Well, the entire global economy depends on it. Debt allows money to move, it fuels growth, creates jobs, and lets countries spend more than they earn. But there is also another angle to this. What if this entire system isn't just about money at all? What if it's about control? Because think about it. The moment a country takes on debt, it becomes dependent. It starts making decisions not just for its people, but for the lenders, the markets, and the institutions quietly pulling the strings behind the scenes. The ones who actually profit when everyone else owes something. They're not presidents or politicians. They're the invisible network of global banks, hedge funds, and financial giants who move trillions of dollars with a click. So maybe the world runs on debt. Carefully managed, never-ending debt that keeps nations tied to the same system. A system where no one ever truly pays back, and no one ever truly owns anything, because the moment the debts are cleared, the illusion of power disappears.
How's that one? I got a new one that just came out. Trisha, 8 minutes.
Shortfall that they're going to have. I don't know quite how they're going to do it. It's going to be difficult, but the Pentagon says they're willing to help them a little bit. And I would say, they ought to move because they seem to think that Russia is chomping at the bit to take them all down. In fact, they're saying it could happen in 3 years. It's very interesting because wasn't it just the other day that Starmer was telling us 2030? Well, apparently the EU just moved it up. The deadline is now 2029. 3 years from now, They think that they could be in a war with Russia. And the guy who's supposed to spearhead the new defense movement for all of the EU, this would be the defense minister from Germany, he's sounding the alarm. These are all the European countries together, 32 NATO partners. They have all come together and they have said, listen, we have a problem. We think Russia is going to start a war. They have cited some of the satellite imagery that talks about all the facilities that are being built along some of the Nordic borders, like in Finland. And they're saying, hey, you get all this construction going on. It could house possibly 115,000 Russian troops. So we got to take this seriously. Okay. So the German guy, he's running defense. So, he's got some incentive to talk about this. But, they got to do it. They should do it. This is what we want for them to do. Listen to what he said. For so long, nobody paid any attention at all to this in Germany, but throughout Europe. Here's the German defense minister.
Germany and other countries, they hear the alarm clock, but they pushed the snooze button and turned around.
I like that. They pushed the snooze button and they turned around. They just didn't pay attention. The alarms were going off. And I guess they just figured mom and dad, US of A, Uncle Sam will be there for us. Well, now they're looking at the possibility, as he's saying, as these NATO alliance partners are saying, of Russia knocking on their doorstep with a potential military conflict for all of them, not just Ukraine, but for all of them come 2029. Well, yeah, if that's the case, you guys better pull your act together fast.
German society and public is convinced that there is a threat again after 25, almost 30 years of peace.
Potentially facing a war in Europe.
Potentially, yes, but not knowing whether or when.
Okay. Well, I think your report said 3 years, buddy. Okay. I think that interview was on June 11th. And the report that just came out now said, what do you know? They might be looking at a war with Russia in 3 years' time. So that is fast approaching. And I imagine that some people are getting nervous, especially when you look at what they have versus what Russia has. Okay. So this is interesting. Per the Ukrainian Intelligence Service International Institute for Strategic Studies in the U.S. Department of War, guess what? Shell production from our NATO ally friends, they get 3 to 4.5 million. Russia has 7 million. Here's another one for you. I mean, this is even despite what's going on, of course, and we saw what happened in Moscow there today, but this is even despite what's going on with Ukraine. They've still managed in their missile production to put out 2,500 annually versus, that's more than double what they're doing over at NATO, 1,100 annually. And then take a look at this drone production, 3 million units that Russia is going to have out. It's estimated, this is per the U.S. Department of War and the Atlas Institute for International Affairs. They're saying 3 million units drone production. And look at NATO's. I will tell you this, Giorgia Meloni, in defense of Georgia, I know we all have our challenges with Georgia, including yours truly, who sometimes, I like to say, La Donna è mobile. It's the famous tenor aria from, am I blanking? Is it Rigoletto? Yeah. Okay, so La Donna è mobile means the woman is very fickle. And that would pretty much describe Georgia to me right now, because one day, she's all in, rah, we got to improve our NATO spend. And then the next day she's like, well, Italy can't. Italy can't, and they're offering her all kinds of loans that she's great loans. Like, you don't even have to pay the interest for like 10 years. Fantastic loans, right? Or maybe it's the principal for 10 years. Great loans through the EU. And she won't take them. And it's like, lady, come on. Enough already. Don't talk out of two sides of your mouth. But I would just say, listen, this is kind of a big deal. They're talking about effectively a massive amount of drones that they have been able to produce there in Russia versus, take a look at that minuscule number. 300,000 units versus 3 million units. And I will tell you this, Giorgia Meloni has been saying, we need more drones, we need more drones, we need more drones. And she's not wrong. They're cheap to produce. You might as well have them, guys. You might as well do it. But it means you're going to have.
Well, there goes that. I just exit. I don't know how I got 2 streams, you guys. That was weird. Okay, I got 4 more short ones I'm going to play. Thanks, Michael.
This broadcast draws from memory, from proximity, and from
4
something
minutes.
that exists all around you, yet often goes unseen. It offers no simple solution, only a question about what it means to live beside someone and not know them at all. Because tonight we speak of neighbors, not communities, not networks, not followers, neighbors. The people closest to you, not by choice, but by circumstance. There was a time, not so long ago, when proximity meant something. You knew the people who lived around you, not everything about them, not their entire story, but enough. Enough to recognize a face, enough to know a name, enough to knock on a door without hesitation, a borrowed cup of sugar, a quick favor, a conversation that started small and lasted longer than expected.
How's this one?
Children moved between houses like invisible lines didn't exist. Yards weren't borders, they were shared space. Eyes looked out for one another, not out of obligation, but out of awareness. Because when you saw people often enough, they stopped being strangers. They became familiar. And familiarity is the foundation of trust. Not perfect trust, not blind trust, but something simple. Human. You knew who belonged, and more importantly, you knew who needed help. But now something has changed. The houses are still there, the streets are still there, the distance between doors has not grown, and yet the space between people has. Now it is entirely possible, common even, to live next to someone for years and not know their name. Not because you chose not to, but because the moment never presented itself. Or perhaps because we no longer look for it. Garages open and close, doors unlock and disappear behind, head down, eyes forward, a quick wave maybe, a polite acknowledgement of shared existence, but nothing more. No conversation, no connection, just coexistence. And we call this normal, we call this privacy, we call this safety. But is it? Or is it something else? Because when you do not know the people around you, they remain unknown. And what is unknown is easier to misunderstand, easier to avoid, easier to fear. Not because there is danger, but because there is distance. And distance has a way of growing when left unchallenged. You begin to live beside people, not with them, near them, but not connected to them. And over time, that separation becomes invisible. Not because it isn't there, but because it feels familiar. But ask yourself, when did we stop knocking? When did we stop introducing ourselves? When did the people closest to us become the ones we know the least? Because the loss of community is not always loud. It doesn't arrive with announcement. It doesn't demand your attention. It fades quietly, replaced by convenience, by independence, by the belief that we do not need one another as much as we once did. But is that true? Or have we simply built systems that allow us to live as if it were? Because everything you need can now be delivered, ordered, scheduled, handled, without interaction, without conversation, without connection. And slowly we adapt. We rely less on people and more on systems, less on neighbors and more on services. Until one day you realize you are surrounded by people and still alone. Not physically, but socially. Because proximity without connection is not community. It is arrangement. And arrangements do not look out for you. They do not notice when something is wrong. They do not check in. They do not care.
I got one more, you guys. 4 minutes.
But only when they know you. And knowing requires something we seem to be losing. Initiation. The willingness to step beyond the silent agreement of mutual distance and say something simple. Something human. Hello. Because connection does not begin with shared beliefs or perfect alignment. It begins with recognition, with presence, with the acknowledgement that the person next to you exists beyond your awareness of them. And perhaps that is where we begin again. Not by rebuilding entire communities overnight, but by closing the distance one interaction at a time. A conversation, a name, a moment. Small things, but small things have always been where connection begins. Because once upon a time, that was enough. And maybe it still is. This has been a voice, behind the mask. Stay aware, stay questioning, and above all, stay human. Because in a world that keeps us separated, choosing to know one another is an act of quiet defiance. Masks fade, but the echo of a free voice endures. Good evening, America. Or perhaps more appropriately, good evening, world. Before we begin, a brief note. This broadcast draws from memory.
Okay, I hope that was okay. Okay, this will be the last one. 4 minutes. They won't let me play it. We'll play this one. 3 minutes.
Largest immigration law
I
firm
might have
in the
played this
United
yesterday,
States,
but some people might have missed
boom,
it.
just shut down. And why?
3 minutes.
Investigation for fraud. What was the fraud? Well, the attorney who owned the firm, her name is Alexandra Lozano. She specialized in visas for victims of domestic violence, victims of human trafficking, and the feds and also clients were investigating, and there was a civil lawsuit alleging that she was purposely faking affidavits, creating stories to get people visas, specifically a lot of people who entered without visas,
I played this.
so that
I
they could
can't
fix
remember.
their status here in the United States. Why is this a big deal? Well, there's a few more firms who have the same business model who, guess what, are also under investigation. So it's crazy because think about it, $1 billion per year worth of immigrants were hiring this law firm, and now doors are shut, money is trapped, people want refunds, people are terrified of getting deported, and a lot of these immigrants don't even know what information was included on their applications. So what's going to happen?
Another good
We'll
one.
just have to wait and find out. However, it is possible, if you can get a copy of your file and you're with this firm, you can have an immigration lawyer review it, see what information was accurate, if there was incorrect information, and you may be able to try to notify immigration about the incorrect information, or you may be a witness in this lawsuit, or if the feds bring criminal charges against Alexandra Lozana, you could actually help the feds testify and provide information about how you are a victim. So, yeah, it's a crazy time to be an immigrant, and it's a crazy time to be an immigration lawyer.
All right, this is a crazy one, guys. So this law firm ended up being one of the biggest immigration law firms in the United States. And what they did was they imported people here on visas, roughly 80,000 people plus they were able to bring over here. And they were qualifying them for visas for things like Violence Against Women Act, U visas for crime victims, T visas for human trafficking victims. But the thing was, it was fake. If you look, they have lawsuits that were filed in federal court that say that they were alleging fraudulent practices, fabricating, exaggerating abuse claims, which means they were just saying these women were victims of abuse to qualify them for visas and then bring them into the United States. They were filing ineligible applications, pressuring clients to sign blank documents, and then charging $15,000. I mean, that's just nuts. So what they did was they were able to just, the guy who founded the law firm was able to just resign. And him resigning means that he was able to avoid disciplinary action by the Washington State Bar Association.
All right, that was pretty good, I thought. All right, we're going to wrap things up for the first show. Oh, boy. All right. So everybody have a good dinner and come back after dinner time and have another great show tonight. Hopefully Kay doing okay. All right. Thanks, Bob, Lucy, Carol, Tim, and Bonnie. Tim wasn't in today, I don't think. God bless everybody. I love them. Please hit the like. And people say keep the faith and never give up. And sign off. Show number one for Sunday, Father's Day. Hope everyone had a good Father's Day, and we'll see you after dinner time. Chico dude. See you guys in a little bit.